Hey, thanks for joining me, guys. My name is Will Lopez. I'm founder of advisorfi.com. Today, this video is going to cover why the SCorp status and how to complete Form 2553, which is the IRS form to elect S corporation status federally. So I get asked this question a lot by a lot of small business owners all across the country. I do a lot of consulting in this area, and I do a lot of guidance in this area. So the common question I get is, how do I save money in taxes? And then how do I properly format my corporation or structure my corporation where it's beneficial to saving money in taxes? And it all basically comes down to this SCorp status that this term always gets kicked around. So what I want to try to do is explain what the SCorp status is, why I believe you should elect it if you qualify for it, and then basically how to elect it, which is basically Form 2553 and how to complete that. So what is the SCorp status? So the SCorp status is a federal tax status that needs to be elected, that the IRS allows you to elect federally. So you basically fill out Form 2553, the IRS processes that form and basically sends a letter to you saying that your corporation or your LLC has been qualified for SCorp status. LLCs and Incs can elect it. So what people don't know is that LLCs default to a certain tax position, and so do Incs. Incs default to a certain tax position, and that tax position is not SCorp status. For Incs, generally, for Incs it's C corps. For LLCs, generally sole proprietorship if one person owns it. Not the default tax status for LLCs and Incs. SCorp status is a status that needs to be elected. So the IRS by default puts you in as far as I'm concerned, the worst tax position possible, and it's your job to elect otherwise. And the SCorp status is a way to save a bunch of money for all of us. Default tax status is for LLCs. Well, if one person or one entity owns an LLC or starts an LLC in the state, in your state, if it's an individual, it's a sole proprietorship. If it's another corporation that formed the LLC and wholly owns that LLC, it's a disregarded entity. If two or more people own an LLC, it's considered a partnership. If two or more corporations or other entities own an LLC, it's a partnership. Sole proprietors, disregarded entities, partnerships in general are subject to self-employment tax, which is Social Security tax and Medicare tax, and subject to the full realm of self-employment tax, which is the employee's portion and the employer's portion, which is 15.3% total altogether. So on a $100,000 bottom line, if you're an LLC being taxed as a sole proprietorship after all expenses, then your tax bill at least will be $15,300, which is what Social Security is. And that does not take into account federal income tax, state income tax if you're subject to that. So, it's a huge way to save money electing SCorp status. So default tax status is for Inc. corporations. So if you form an Inc. in your state, the default tax status for that is C corps, also known as a double tax corp. Double tax corp is really popular for publicly traded companies, so like Facebook, Twitter, Ford, GM. C corps allow you to have various kinds of stock, that is common stock versus preferred stock, unlimited amount of shareholders. So that's where C corps really become popular, is when you want to have more than 100 shareholders owning your corporation. C corp status is generally the way to go. Really popular for a lot of tech startup companies. C corps in Delaware, C corps in Nevada. So that's the default tax status for Inc. So you don't have to elect that. It's just the default, and that's how the IRS will treat you. If you want your Inc. to be an S corp, then you have to elect otherwise. C corps obviously pay corporate tax. So whatever incomes or net income the C corp generates pays tax at the corporate level, and then if the shareholder wants to kick out dividends, or if the company wants to kick out dividends to the shareholders, then the dividends are taxed at the dividend tax rates. The benefits of being an S corp is basically you don't have to pay any corporate tax, right? So you're not a C corp, you're not paying the corporate tax. You're paying basically whatever incomes are generated from the S corp flow through the entity down to you, and then you pay tax at the individual level. So just like this point says, it's a flow-through entity, so any incomes or losses that the S corp or that your LLC taxed as an S corp or your Inc. taxed as an S corp generates flows through that business down to the shareholder and is taxed at the shareholder's marginal tax rate that applies to them. Any flow-through income that an S-corp generates doesn't pay self-employment tax. So that's where the savings comes from. So for example, if you're a LLC as a sole proprietor, so being taxed as a sole proprietor, and you have a $100,000 net income after all expenses, all deductions, then as a sole proprietor, you pay 15.3% in self-employment tax plus your federal marginal tax rates plus your state income tax. But if you make that same $100,000 after all deductions and expenses as an S-corp, it flows through the S-corp status down to your individual tax return, and you don't pay any self-employment tax. You basically save 15.3% on every dollar up to the phase-outs of Social Security and Medicare. Now, you can't avoid marginal or your federal income tax, and you can't avoid state income tax, but you can manage your self-employment taxes or your Social Security taxes and your Medicare taxes. Great way to save potential, or great potential saving a bunch of money there. Some considerations of S-corp status. So I wasn't going to leave this out. So some people always show the benefits, but they never show kind of the requirements of S-corp status. There is a rule or a guideline that the IRS says that the owner shareholder of an S-corp status must pay themselves a reasonable compensation. They give some guidelines, and there are some case studies as far as what's considered reasonable. I would suggest you contact your tax pro or contact us to help you determine what's considered reasonable. And what reasonable compensation means is basically running payroll for yourself, W-2 wages. So the reason why the S-corps don't pay Social Security tax or Medicare tax is because eventually you, the shareholder, are going to run payroll for yourself, and through payroll you're going to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes. S-corp status adds more administrative costs. So S-corps basically have to file its own tax return, which means you're going to have a tax return prep fee for that. If you're going to have to pay yourself a reasonable compensation, or you're going to have to run payroll for yourself, and that's going to add another $400 to $600 a year of administrative costs. So sure, it makes your business a little bit more complex in the administrative end. So as far as I'm concerned, the savings from the S-corp status far exceed the added administrative efforts or costs to have this S-corp status elected. So sure, you pay $600 a year in payroll costs. Sure, you pay, let's say, $650 to $1,000 a year for a tax preparation of your S-corp return. So you pay $2,000 a year, but if you generate a $100,000 net income, you elect S-corp status. You save 15.3% on $100,000. You save 15 grand. So you pay $2,000 to save 15. Net out the door, $12,000 to $13,000 savings in your pocket. For me, that's a huge benefit. That's a huge boon of cash flow back into the business. And basically, what you can do with the savings, sometimes I give some advice there. And basically, I tell my clients to either reinvest them into your business as working capital, hire more employees with that savings, establish an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So you have the really cool option of setting up, let's say, a SEP IRA for yourself, or a simple IRA, or a solo 401k, or if you haven't done it at the individual level, setting up a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. So a lot of opportunity to save money on taxes and then turn around and use that for your benefit. You can take them as basically just additional owner distributions. So if you just want to pull them as draws and distributions to yourself, then that's absolutely fine. I would work with your tax pro on that and how to properly do that. Or you can do a whole bunch of nothing. You can just sit on it and let it grow at 0.1% in your savings account. That's absolutely fine. So what I want to do is take some time now to show you how to complete Form 2553, which is the form that needs to be completed for S-corp status here. So let me get my screen up and running here. What I would do is go to Google, and I would just type in Form 2553. And what's going to happen is a couple PDF documents are going to pop up that the IRS has on their website. One is the instructions for Form 2553, which you can read. If you're having a really hard time sleeping at night, I would totally recommend reading this. It'll knock you right out. And there's the actual application or the form to elect SCorp status. So pretty much it's the first link that pops up. Here's the form and what it looks like. What I'm going to do is zoom in here a little bit. So then that way we can work on this together. So it's basically a 2-page document that needs to be completed. So I'm working on the assumption that you've just started your corporation, your Inc. or your LLC, and you need to file this form. If you're late in filing this form, then I would contact your pro or contact us, and we can help you basically find the relief for late SCorp election, because what the IRS says is that you have to complete this form basically 2.5 months after you want, or the beginning of your corporation start date. So for example, if you start your corporation on January 1st, then this form needs to be submitted to them by March 15th. If it's not, then it's kind of considered late. Or sometimes the IRS will let you file after the 75-day deadline, but it has to be in the same year that you started your corporation. If it's in the second year or third year of when your business has been open, then it's considered late, and you basically have to toss inside this form some late amendment language. Sometimes some tax preparers like to prepare a separate legal document that gets submitted with the SCorp status form, or this 2553. So I'm working on the presumption here that you've just started your business, and we're going to fill out this form 2553. So it's a 2-page form, really straightforward. It's going to ask for a lot of corporate information, so you have to have your corporate documents in front of you. You have to have your EIN number assigned to you by the IRS in front of you, and we're going to fill out the rest of this here. The page 1 is going to ask for a lot of that corporate information, a lot of information on the corporation and who owns it and who the IRS can contact. The second page is basically going to ask for a list of the shareholders or former shareholders required to consent to the election. So basically, shareholder name, address, their signature, date of the application, how many shares or percentage-wise, if you're an LLC, that shareholder owns, when they acquired those shares or percentages of ownership, the Social Security number of the shareholder, and then the shareholder's tax year end. So on the first page, we're just going to fill out this blank. We're going to call it ABC Company. LLC is the name of the business. The EIN number is the EIN number assigned to you. So we're going to say 4612345667. The address is going to be 123. Let's say Mickey Mouse Lane. Date incorporated, I'm going to say this year, so January 1st of 2015. I'm going to fill out the rest of this information. State of incorporation, once again, that's your state that you formed the LLC or the Inc. in, so we're going to say Florida in my state. Box D, only if you're making any changes, name changes or address changes, do you have to select this. In 99% of the cases, you don't have to fill this in. But Box C is going to ask, election is to be effective for tax year beginning. Normally, I would put the start date of the corporation. So if I started my corporation on 1/1/2015, I'm going to put 1/1/2015. Box F basically is the tax year. So if you're fiscal year end, if you're an odd year end, or if you're calendar year end, this is where you're going to make that election. For majority of us, it's calendar year end, so we're going to select that. I'm actually going to put my information in here and a phone number for the IRS to reach me. Actually, we're going to put my name and my title, so I'm going to put managing member because it's an LLC, and then a phone number for them to reach me. And then down here, I'm actually going to put in managing member again as my title. And when I print this form, I'm going to sign it and date it. On page 2, I'm going to actually put in my personal information. So I'm going to put Will Lopez, my address, whatever that may be. I'm going to, when I print it, and when I print these documents, I'm going to sign it with my actual signature. And I'm actually going to put today's date, which is January 27th, 2015. Since I'm the only owner of this LLC, I'm going to say I own 100% of this LLC. If it's, let's say you're in a partnership with someone, it's 50-50, then you would put 50% your shareholder information, and then their shareholder information, and 50% to them. Date acquired, I normally put, or what you should put, is the date of start date of the corporation. So in this case it's January 1st, 2015. My social security number. We're going to put in a fake one here. And then the shareholders tax year end, for everybody, it's normally 12/31, right? If you're an individual that owns it, if it's another corporation and the corporation is a calendar year end, then I would put the corporation calendar year end, which is generally 12/31. So this is pretty much how you fill out 2553. What I would do is fill out the information as best you can, print out page 1 and 2 of this document, sign page 1 and date it. On page 2, sign the document, and then you can fax it to the fax number provided to you in the instructions for Form 2553, or provided to your tax professional, and they'll fax it for you and send it certified mail. So if you have any questions, feel free to visit us at advisorfi.com. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with us to help you elect SCorp status, or if you're late in electing SCorp status, then I would go to meetme.so/coach board, select option accounting consultation, then general consultation, and that'll schedule an hour free consultation with us, and we can talk about how to save money in taxes and how to properly format your corporation. All right, guys, take care and talk to you soon.